this technique. I have two passwords.
There you have it, folks. Baby steps, but it takes. How do you say it? I can't remember it anymore.
Let's say that even baby steps in cybersecurity can take you a long way.
Damn right. Damn right. Okay. Hello there, and welcome to a podcast episode brought to you by F-Secure and KOVA Esports. Today we have Joel from F-Secure. Hello. And
Good
then
evening.
we have also Spamned, our streamer in KOVA Esports.
Hello.
So, guys, tell me a little bit about yourselves.
Well,
Joel, for example.
Yes, I guess that means me. Yes, so Joel, working at F-Secure, 5 years in the making. Now I like to call myself man in the middle between InfoSec and marketers, focusing mainly on consumer cybersecurity and perhaps even more consumer privacy issues and how we communicate those to our customers, but also in larger audiences across the world, I would say. And in let's say how to tie myself and F-Secure back to then KOVA Esports and esports in general, I guess like all of you, I'm a gamer at heart, have been more of a gamer maybe 10 years ago when I did esports maybe a bit more seriously than what I do now, but still very much following the esports scene in general and try to get those gaming hours in whenever I can. And definitely cybersecurity in gaming is something that doesn't, you don't see that much of discussion in it. At least in gaming circles, it's quite rare to see more talks about cybersecurity. And then in cybersecurity circles, gaming isn't really considered to be that big of I don't know, maybe even an audience at this point, which frankly isn't true, but for some reason there is a bit of a communication break between the two audiences. So I think this is a great opportunity to get some facts and information out there for both parties.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think we should discuss more about, later on in this podcast about why isn't gaming or esports considered that big of a deal or a big customership in the world of cybersecurity. But then our other guest, Spamned. Hello.
Hello, my name is Teemu Rissanen, and in the internet I go under the name Spammed or Spam, and I make YouTube content and I stream a lot. So I guess I have multiple titles I could use here. I make content in KOVA Esports organization, and yeah, that's pretty much it. It includes a lot of stuff.
I'm curious if you were invited to this podcast episode because of your alias, Spam, because it's quite unfortunate considering the topic, but
yeah, probably. No, I mean, most people think it comes from their how do I say, chunk email. Like it's because I'm like a flashy person, so I make a lot of spam, and it comes from that. But actually, it's not true. It comes from a name of one energy drink that used to be one of my favorites, like 10 years ago or so, and it doesn't have that much of a story behind it.
All right. Well, glad to have you here. Myself, I'm Timo Tarvainen, and I'm the general manager of KOVA Esports, and I handle the things in the player organization and everything that includes or has to do with players in our organization. So, fine gentlemen, I think we dive deep into our first topic, shall we? I think
Yes.
one of the main things, like in general in cybersecurity, it's like this flashy word, I think, and many people use it, but they might not fully understand what they mean by that. Do you agree or disagree?
Well, I guess it comes down to what people see in media and what kind of media they follow in the first place, and that very much shapes how they perceive cybersecurity and what they think it means or doesn't mean. And so in that sense, I can fully agree that if it does mean different things to different people.
Yeah. So my next question is, what is cybersecurity to you guys? What do you? I mean, okay, Joel might have a slightly broader broader view on the subject, but hey, let's take a shot here, okay? What is cybersecurity to you?
Cybersecurity is mostly being safe with my skins. I have thousands of euros worth of skins, and I don't want to lose them in any kind of scams, which are like pretty common nowadays. And I don't know much else. I just want to keep my account safe, and mostly my Steam account, which is worth thousands of euros. And yeah.
All right. Well, I can answer here in the middle before we let Joel to discuss about this. For me, I think it boils down to my own information and how it's handled. I think I try to take some precautions, like by using services and apps that handle my information with good care. Like there are good examples of that, and there are really bad examples of how some companies sell data and stuff like that. Okay, not mentioning any names, but I think that is like cybersecurity to me, just making sure that my information is intact within my grasp as possible. But yeah, that's about it. How about you, Joel?
Yes, I think both of your answers were very interesting because they do eventually tie back to kind of the same things and same principles, just from maybe different angles looking at the same things. But maybe for me, cybersecurity as a whole, it means that I'm just more aware of things and maybe build my own actions. And definitely cybersecurity is, for most of us, it's a question of behavior, not so much question of technology. And definitely the more I become aware of cybersecurity and online privacy and things along those lines, it's a behavior shifting and shaping kind of a field all in all, I would say. And to me, it's just part of the little everyday actions and understanding then the broader consequences of doing something beyond just that immediate clicking of a page or inputting my information somewhere, and what does it mean to have a lot of money tied to online accounts and things along those lines, and how they all sort of come together. I think that's the cybersecurity as a whole. And when you start to understand that it is a broad concept that has many touch points to different aspects of your life, then I think for me it becomes less of a scary topic at that point, but it becomes more of a commonplace thing to think about and to be aware of.
Yeah, and I think because it is such a broad topic, and maybe probably like our generation knows things better than the generations that are much older than us, but they might have this fear of like who is stealing the money from my account or something like that, like genuine fear of that some hacker tries to steal, because the media promotes this sort of stuff that all the information was stolen. There was this Vastaamo Case, for example, where the hundreds of people information was stolen and stuff like that. So I think the more you go deeper into this subject, the more you start to form this sort of common sense, if you will, to this topic in general, that actually gives you a peace of mind in the end.
Yes, and I think common sense is a good word for it, because most of the things that are relevant in terms of cybersecurity, that are relevant for gamers, are relevant for everyone else. Like the basics, the fundamentals, they always stay the same, no matter what's your scenario, what kind of devices you use or anything. The basic security hygiene is pretty much the same for most of us all the time. And that's also something that the more people understand that, the better it is for everyone.
What's the word? Cyber hygiene? Was that it?
Security hygiene.
Security hygiene.
Yes, you can drop cyber out of it.
Okay, that was the first one for me. Okay, so do you have, Teemu, anything to comment on this?
Yeah, about different generation being afraid to put their information anywhere. I'm thinking about my parents, who are extremely nervous to put any information like credit card. Basically, when they are ordering something from the internet or anything like that. So they are afraid to do that, and usually they link the websites to me. Is this legit? Can I order from here? And stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and it's in some sense, when generalizing, you could say that older people are more cautious regarding that thing, and then younger people less so. But funnily enough, if you think from the angle of how much personal information gets revealed, then it's usually the older people on Facebook who reveal more of themselves, and younger people then not necessarily. So there's a interesting shift in the different aspects of cybersecurity in that sense, I would say. I think both parties need to learn from each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like mom, those queries from Facebook, you gotta stop. You gotta stop putting your information on those. Just stop it, okay?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What is your date of birth? Okay, what was your hometown? Oh, nice. But yeah, okay. So we talked about this security hygiene. So what have you done in your daily lives to achieve this good cybersecurity that you were just briefly talking about, that what it means to you? So what steps do you take on a daily basis to keep your security hygiene intact?
For me, it's in daily basics, I am using two-factor authentication in every place it's possible, because I feel like it's something if I contact my phone to my accounts, they don't get to wrong hands so easily and stuff like that. And also I use VPN most of the time when I'm browsing the internet, and yeah.
All right, that sounds good. I can answer. I think this is the best way to go through these questions, that I answer in the middle, and Joel can you put the expertise.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, you can be the expert that settles the whole thing. Okay, so I think in my daily life I rather use I use password manager. I don't use any same passwords in different services. I also use a VPN. I use a browser that is how do you say it? It has this tracker blocker. I think tracker blocker and ad blocker built in within the browser. So I like to use that. Yeah, two-factor authentication as well, since a lot of game services are really tied to those. So I like to use that. And what else? Those were actually the main points, at least.
All
So
right.
what about you, Joel?
Well, maybe first of all, I'd like to take a step back and before thinking about these measures that you take, you should first, I'm sure that you've done this and most people do this, but not necessarily in a conscious manner, that you should think about the actual threats. Like, what are you trying to defend yourself and your information against? Like, what is the threat, and what do you perceive to be the kind of situation that you don't want to find yourself in? And then once you identify those things and identify the things that you want to protect, then you start adding those measures, changing your behavior, taking those technical tools and things like that into use, and trying to one by one, as best as you can with your time and money and effort, to remedy those issues and figure out how to defend yourself against it. You guys talked about two-factor authentication. Absolutely essential, I think, for everyone when it comes to security hygiene. Good practices with passwords and two-factor authentication. Those two things alone, I think those are the easiest wins, let's say it that way, because a lot of the threats that are targeted towards gamers especially are related to phishing or credential stuffing or some other type of account takeovers. So getting the multi-factor authentication or two-factor authentication in order, extremely important. And I've noticed that many, or not many, but some games and platforms actually reward the user by turning two-factor authentication on. So you might get some in-game currency or other in-game items and things like that once you turn those on. So it's a good encouragement and way of making two-factor authentication more interesting and less of an obstacle for many, because it is an extra step. But by its name, it is an extra step you have to take, and many would rather not take that extra step and instead just go straight into their accounts and go straight to playing games and whatnot. So whatever the game devs and publishers themselves can do to make taking two-factor authentication in use is always a positive thing. And as for passwords, Timo mentioned using password manager. Highly recommend doing that. And generally speaking, passwords should be always strong and unique. And once you realize that, then very quickly you realize that there is no way that you can memorize all your passwords if they are strong and unique. One easy way to improve your passwords without a password manager is to use pass phrases. So combine, let's say, 4 different words together that form sort of a gibberish super word or a sentence, and then use that instead of very simple passwords. But eventually you will run into the same issues that you cannot remember all your pass phrases. And at this point, I'm sure that many people who listen think that, well, I have a system that for this type of a website, I will use the first 5 letters of the website and then my year of birth, and then if the website starts with this letter, then that letter will be used again, or something, like some sort of a systems. People have a lot of these systems, but the problem with those is that once you have one password with that system, it doesn't take a genius to figure out what the system is. And it might be reasonable or at least some level of defense against automated attacks. But if someone really wants to get in and has access to some of your passwords, which is definitely not uncommon, because a lot of the data breaches and such are publicly available, then they can fairly easily figure out what is your secure system and simply replicate the system and log into whatever account they're targeting?
I have this technique. I have 2 passwords, and it's like 2 different passwords, but I use them in like everywhere. But I change like one letter to a capital letter, or I change the number like behind the word, password word. What do you think about this?
Yes, this is exactly the kind of secure technique that I was talking about, and and actually, this is a very good thing that you mentioned, because third, if not the most important component of good security hygiene, is that you should just not share. Sharing is not caring when it comes to cybersecurity. So right now, I know your name by our discussion. I know that you have a good Steam account, which is very much, or which is quite easy to turn into actual euros if I get access to it. I know that you have only 2 main password variations. By knowing your name, it should be fairly easy to find some of your email addresses, what the addresses are. And by knowing that, I could go through a list of data breaches, find where your email address has been, and then see if is in those data breaches any of your passwords has leaked in some form, and then work my way through there. Of course, with Steam, at least you have most likely Steam Guard in place, so you have the multi-factor authentication, so that's a good thing. But as you probably know, there has been some, I think, fairly recent cases where high-profile accounts, even with Steam Guard, have been taken over and the skins have been stolen. And I believe in those cases there has been, or at least it has been speculated that it has had something to do with iCloud backups, that somehow they would back up the whole Steam Guard application, and then it would be, if the attacker would have access to the iCloud backup, then it would be possible to sort of clone the Steam Guard and bypass the multi-factor authentication as well. But even without those, sharing is not caring. So less you share about your, not just your security practices necessarily, but your accounts in general, the better. Of course, in your situation, it's difficult because I would consider you a more high-profile target than perhaps myself or Timo. So for us, it's easy. We just don't share information about our accounts. Don't have anything public, Steam accounts or any other accounts public. Don't talk about our inventory. Don't talk about necessarily how many games we have on our accounts or whatnot. And something that really most gamers would probably not want to hear, it's actually a smart idea not to use the same alias or same nickname across different platforms, because that's again one way to put 1 + 1 = 2 and figure out where else you are and what else you do. So it's I guess the concept is sometimes at least called or said that keep your profiles and identities separated. So if nothing else, there's a bit of food for thought for you guys, and figure out if someone can access something with your name and your alias, what else can be then accessed, or at least figure out what else could be targeted. So it's good to keep sort of do a reality check every now and then and figure out where are you online with these exact same details, and figure out what's the kind of the attack surface, if you will. Where are you exposed? Not necessarily exposed in a bad way, but where you expose your online identity.
And I think that was a good point that you made, that about, I think this is called social engineering, right? When Teemu discussed about that he has 2 different passwords, and then you started maybe asking stuff about him, or at least stating some facts.
Yes,
right?
It would be even more social engineering if you couldn't verify that my name is Joel, that I'm actually working for F-Secure. I could be just any random guy who got the invite to this Discord. And
true.
Just saying.
Yeah, just letting it out there,
Good point.
Yeah, but I think that is extremely important info, and also heartbreaking info that you need to use different nicknames, because if not my nickname is not available for some platform, I'm so mad about it.
Yes, I know.
Yeah. Oh man, good discussion. Hey, about the next thing, what would like everyone, whether just a commoner or a gamer in particular, what are the maybe top 5 things that they could do right now, like what they should do to improve their security hygiene?
I think this one is for Joel.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, we already touched upon the main things, so definitely two-factor authentication wherever you can. It's always a good idea. And if you have an option with the two-factor authentication to use, let's say, SMS or something else, use something else. SMS two-factor authentication is especially if you are a high-profile gamer or a target in general, SMS two-factor authentication can be bypassed, I think, easier than, let's say, through email or through hardware key, or what would be the most, I guess, accessible and good way still through two-factor authentication app. Those are all better options, in my opinion. Do not log in with your social media accounts for the same reason. Then it just means that whoever has access to your social media accounts now has access not just all your information on that platform, but also your other places where you log in via that. So don't do that. Consider a password manager. It's definitely on sort of beyond just basics, I would say. But once you start using it, I guess, Timo, you agree that there's no going back. That once there's some app that can generate and remember all your passwords, then it really is a game changer. But it's you can live your life without a password manager, but it's still highly recommended. Then also, I think security questions were mentioned earlier. Good to know that you don't have to be honest with them. Always lie to security questions and write down your lies. So if the question is, what was the name of your first pet? You can write complete gibberish, or just write, I don't know, something else, your favorite TV show or whatever. Just fake answer, then write that answer down and store it somewhere. Same thing goes for your birthday. A lot of platforms ask for your birthday just to verify that you're old enough. Well, just come up with random birthday. That's completely fine. They don't need to know your birthday. No one needs to know your birthday.
Actually, I have one thing for this. I use like my own birthday, but I changed the year. So is it any better?
Yeah, well, it's one step better, definitely. Yeah. Well, once you know your birthday, then it can again be one piece of information for an adversary to figure out more information about you, or even pose as you in some cases.
I have used the same year as my birthday, like since I was 10 years old in the internet. So it was because I wasn't old enough in some games. So I have used it ever since, and I thought it's like a good security tactic that I keep using the wrong year. So
yeah, definitely. Very simple thing to do, and it's just one more little thing to annoy anyone who might try to access your stuff. And then beyond just these tools and things like that, definitely the biggest change has to happen in just thinking, or just kind of the common sense aspect needs to be more into play. And that goes with everyone, not just gamers, but when doing trading, think about where you do it. I would recommend doing it in the official platforms. In third-party places, when you do trading, whatever the game is, there's always a lot higher chance of some type of a scam or fraud happening. Sure, prices are usually lower, but that's the lure, the way to get you into those platforms. Same thing when you download games, if we're not even talking about pirated games, but if you, I know this is an issue in some countries where they, for example, with Android phones, they use a lot of different stores except Play Store. And that's, again, one level less of verification, how good of the app is, how safe it is. At least when you download it from directly through App Store or Play Store, there's a bit of a confidence already that it's not full of malware. It's not foolproof, but it's better than downloading it from shady third-party sites. So definitely things like that are things to consider. And then maybe one more thing to realize, that why gamers are also targeted with malware and different kinds of spyware and Trojans is because, traditionally speaking, gamers, especially PC gamers, I'm talking now, don't have any type of security software, because it has, in the past at least, been a hindrance. It takes up bandwidth, takes up computing power, so it's definitely has been a no-go, I would say, and generally accepted as such still to this day among gamers. And that's not necessarily true anymore, but definitely was the case, let's say 15, even 10 years ago still. Things weren't as good and fast and lightweight as they are these days.
If I ask my viewers or my friends why they are not using any security software, 99% of the answers will be because it affects the gameplay, it lags the game or something like that.
Yeah, next time ask how many they have actually tried.
Yeah, that could make a good point.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think it's fairly easy to like make comparison. Like, for example, for FPS, like how much
Yes.
FPS are you losing when you're using some sort of,
Yes, and people don't necessarily understand also, not just the software itself has gotten, the way it works is now different. It's not continuously scanning your hard drives, but the PCs themselves have evolved so much. So even if it would be just as bad software as it was, let's say 10 years, 20 years ago, we now have SSDs, high-speed internet, crazy CPUs and GPUs. So it's not really that big of a deal. Even if the software would be like poorly made, it would still be very little of hindrance in modern computers. So definitely worth a shot.
All right. You mentioned there about the security questions that you should write down the answers and store them somewhere safe.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. My question is about password manager, and you still need to remember the master password, right?
Yes.
That is the only one you need to remember.
Yes. Usually there is way of accessing the password manager like a backup way if you lose your master or forget your master password. But the master password is, for example, a good place to use those pass phrases that I mentioned before. So that way you can make it long, which means it's very hard to crack, but still something that you can fairly easily remember.
Okay.
But yes, I would much rather remember that one password than I think I have now. Well, I'm not checking the actual number, but over 200 passwords in my password manager. And that's, again, something that I probably shouldn't share, but now I did.
Yeah, I agree. And I think for me, at least, after starting using the password managers, I don't get any emails anymore about that someone has tried to log in to some of my accounts. Like there's this email coming that, okay, was this you or something?
Yes.
If this wasn't you, please change your password. And now I've put them like so crazy that, I mean, it's impossible to guess them, basically. And I think that's the good part of the manager software itself.
Yeah, and that what you're describing is called credential stuffing, and how it works is that I talked about these data breaches and these long lists that are available through certain hacking forums and things like that for anyone to access freely. These are massive lists, and what criminals do is that they take those lists, and let's say the list would include Netflix accounts. So let's say there would be, this is just an example, but let's say there would be Netflix accounts, so email addresses and passwords. And now what the criminals do is they take that list and they test those same combinations to Amazon, to Gmail, or to Steam and things like that. So they are stuffing the same credentials to different services. And because people reuse passwords, that often works. And because the lists are so massive that there's always bound to be accounts that reuse passwords. So it's a very lucrative and easy way for them to utilize those data breaches and monetize them and take over those accounts. And then depending on the services where they get access to, then the way they can turn those accounts into actual euros and dollars differ, but the idea is always the same.
I have a question about passwords. I have heard this theory about like it's harder to hackers to like get to know your password if you use words like coffee pan 1 2 3 10. You would use like X 0 Y 1, like the random combination of letters. So I heard this theory that it's easier to find out the random code than the actual word that means something, probably.
Well, there's a few different things at play here. Usually, I'm not sure if this is what wherever you got that information was referring to, but generally speaking, if I would make a password that is very complex, it's likely that it's also shorter. And again, generally speaking, longer passwords are better. However, if you use a long password that is common or even uncommon English word, then that's arguably even worse than a short, complex password. Because when criminals try to access accounts, they can do what is called dictionary attacks. So they can try for example, your email address, and then a list of tens of thousands of English words or a combination of those words. Again, in the order of where they've seen them used in previous data breaches. So they have these ready-made lists and they can just run those through. And depending on the service, it's actually possible to try those combinations for the same accounts many times without any sort of automatic lockdown or some other systems for those services to prevent that. So in that sense, it can be either or. So
yeah, okay.
But yeah, if there is one takeaway, then longer passwords are better, and if they're longer, they can be simpler. So they don't have to have all sorts of number and special character combinations, things like that. Necessarily, they don't hurt, but necessarily are not required. As long as the password is long, it's better than a very short but complex password.
All right.
All right, that was a thorough answer, which was good. Okay, so now we have the list. There's two-factor authentication, and if possible, don't use SMS or text messages.
Yep.
Use a password manager. This is already above the basics, but good to use. Lie to the security questions and wrote down the answers. And more likely, or the most important thing, is to use common sense whenever you, for example, trade some skins or something.
If something seems too good to be true, it's probably a scam. If something is free, it's always a scam.
Yeah.
If and most especially scams are texts that say that they are not scams. I have an example here that I caught recently to my own Steam account, and I will read it out to you.
Mhm.
Let's see. At which point do you think that you could guess that this is not a legit message or a legit person? So here we go. I know it is so random, but I made huge mistake towards you. Could you please add me as soon as possible? I have something
Now.
to tell you, and
Now.
and it's really important, dude. I just want to talk to you in private about this matter. And to end it all off, in caps lock, not about trade, and surely not a bot. So there you
Yeah.
go. If it's not a bot and surely not about trade, then it's definitely a bot.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So yeah, again, common sense comes into play.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Exactly.
works pretty well in skin trading. I have done it like for 7-8 years in a couple different games, and I have made like a real money out of it, obviously, because they are worth real money. And
Yes.
your point about if it's too good, it's not true. And what was the other? Those are exactly the ones that I use all the time, because people come to me and ask about these tradings, ask about am I going to get scammed, and also your point about the using only the official markets for skins. For example, you get your CSGO skins from Steam community market, even though it's more expensive than on other sites. I always recommend, especially younger people, to use it. So I'm just saying to them, like, save some more money and make it safe.
Yes.
Especially when they're young, they have absolutely no idea what they're doing. They just want to play, and they just want to buy this skin with this birthday money. And
yes, definitely, and that's actually a very good point that you raised, that when people should first of all ask for help, and you should figure it out together. And if you have the knowledge, then definitely share it. That's the best way of getting the message through to other people. I mean, F-Secure has been in business over 30 years, and it's not like cybersecurity would have somehow gotten better. Quite the contrary, the possible frauds and scams and attack vectors and things that can happen, they continue to happen. There continues to be more of them and different kinds. So it's an a process that keeps on going all the time, and the best way to move forward is to educate each other whenever you acquire that knowledge, and especially if you have some of your own experiences, it's good to share those. And maybe one more word about that trading skins, and especially staying on Steam platform. I'm sure that the situation is same for other platforms as well, but bear in mind that if someone contacts you and claims that they're working for Steam or Valve, they are not working for Steam or Valve.
yeah,
That's also a scam. So,
Yeah.
and especially if someone says that, okay, I'm working for this company, I need your this and that details, then it's always a scam. But
yeah,
well,
you just say.
yeah, they actually have, Steam has really good and super long support page about how to identify these scams and these frauds, but it's very well hidden. It's not really promoted anywhere. So if there is some type of show notes or something that we're going to add to this podcast, then definitely that link is worth adding and worth checking out. Most of it is pretty common sense, but it's again one of those things that before you read it, you haven't really thought those things through or consciously went through the process of what are the warning signs when something is about to happen. If there's a trade going on, maybe it feels that it's it needs to happen very fast, and you're missing this opportunity if you're not taking it, and so forth. And there's a lot of those warning signs, and they have a really good list about it, but it's very, very well hidden, unfortunately.
Yeah, I could make a few examples of like common skin scams that happen like all the time. Yeah. And this other day, I got a question in my DMs from a younger person who was trying to sell his CS:GO knife skin, and he was asking me. He put this like long dialogue about their conversation about the possible buyer of the skin, and it seemed very legit. Like there was nothing bad going on, but he was asking the younger guy to sell his skin in this legit marketplace, which is not Steam, and he was asking the seller to give him the information. When is he going to sell it? When are you going to deposit your skins to the site so he could buy them? But actually what he did when he got the information about when the seller is selling the skins, he made a fake market bot. Like he was trying to fake that he is the bot, and he sent the seller the trade offer for the skins. And the seller thought he's selling this is like a usual thing that happens when you deposit the items to the market. You get this trade offer, and the bot takes your skins, and things go like that. But this bot was the buyer who then just scammed the items worth 500 euros, and there's that.
Whoa.
And this kid just comes asking me what can he do now, and I'm telling him like you can put messages on Steam support and so. But basically at this point where he gets the skins from the seller, he's probably sold them to Steam community market like immediately, because the items have 7 days trading cooldown, so he can't trade them forward, but he can sell them immediately to Steam market. And then the item gets new owners, and the Steam support cannot reverse the items back to the original owner.
Yeah, that is quite difficult, I think, when I think about it for the game, for Valve, for example, how to solve that case when the skin is sold in some other service that isn't theirs.
Yeah.
How do you figure that one out?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, and there's also the fact that when this kind of in or on platform trading started, they used to solve these situations in a way where they would just sort of duplicate or bring the whoever got scammed the item back, but the original item was still in circulation, and that of course then caused a lot of problems really fast, because the value of the items then decreases, and it messes up with the whole market. So it's not definitely not a straightforward thing. When there's actual money then involved, then that money goes out of Steam's or Valve's hands. It's not lying on their accounts when it changes hands necessarily. So again, there's one more step that they cannot unfortunately impact.
Yeah, and there's this even more common example of scams where the seller puts their skins to, like, they want to trade them, like in very popular platform that they have heard a lot about, like it's the most famous, it could be the most famous skin market other than Steam. And they want to use it, they Google it, and the first result that comes is actually an advertisement. It's like if you don't use any ad blocker or stuff like that, you get an advertisement in Google at the top of it. And there is a fake market site that has like one letter difference in the link, and it looks exactly the same. It has exactly the same items. It has exactly the same prices. It works exactly the same. But when you make the trade, your skins go to the scammer, and you get nothing, and your account probably gets somewhere. Or the other way, you don't lose immediately anything, but they get to know your Steam account details, or at least if your API key is public, they get that, and they can basically control your trade traffic like completely. And when you're trying to make a trade, they just cancel it and make another trade for themselves. And it's just something you have to know when you're making trades, that not to use the fake sites, and make sure the trade offer history. Did my offer got cancelled? What happened, and so on. But the final mistake happens when everybody has mobile authenticator enabled. When you're making trades, it's a must-have. But the scammers make exactly the bot-looking profiles, or the other person. If I'm willing to give this skin to Timo, they make exactly Timo's looking profile and send me a counter offer for my original offer, and I'm just like, okay, Timo counter offers me like this, and I accept. And there my skin goes, not to Timo.
Yes. Yep. Fake Timo. But yes, this is very much the similar kind of fake phishing sites have been used quite a bit also for phishing emails, because spam email there's or spam filters don't necessarily always catch when fake email comes from new sender who hasn't done any kind of phishing or other malicious mailing campaigns before. So that's one way of how those filters work. There are several different ways they work, but that's one way. So that's why every now and then, regardless of what email provider you use, that junk email comes through the filters, and you wonder how that happens. So that's one way. And because Steam and every other gaming platform, they do send you email unless you have opt out of all those emails. So you are used to getting those emails, and the scammer can copy the exact layout of those emails, and then whatever links there is, those that then lead to fake sites that look like Steam or something else. And it's very, if you're, even if you would be aware that this happens, it might be still hard to spot, because the scammers trust that you've seen these emails so many times and done this so many times that you sort of autopilot your way through everything, and they just trust that you don't see if there is something that's a bit off, whether it's the URL or something else inside the site. Once you've done it enough, there's kind of this kind of a fatigue that sets in, and you don't really pay attention as much as you should, especially if you do a lot of trading and things like that. It might come sort of a second nature, and that's then when what the scammers are really relying on, that there is it's enough for them to get maybe 1% or less of their victims to do the transactions, because they have so large databases where they send those emails.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think we have Teemu gave really good examples about how information security has to do with esports and gaming. But I think you all mentioned in the beginning that gamers and esports are not that discussed, like in the world of cybersecurity. So I think we should try to open that claim up a bit. Like, why is that? Or is there even any reason?
I guess there is some reason, but probably I think it boils down to the fact that how people perceive things, even if those things change, the way they perceive it doesn't necessarily change. So people's ideas and concepts about, for example, a group of people such as gamers are very slow to shift. And I think in many sense, if I would talk to a random person, regardless of the age, about gamers, they would have this certain opinion or certain view of them. And unless they are a gamer themselves, it might be very outdated view. And that then gets replicated or duplicated on media and social media. So it sort of enforces this maybe old way of thinking and these old pictures of how what you would consider to be a gamer. For example, people who born in 70s and 80s who are gamers have very different view of gamers because they are older. They understand that not all gamers are 12-year-olds living in their by their parents and not necessarily even have their own any type of debit or credit cards and things like that. And they understand that the concept of gamers is very broad, and the gaming scene is very broad. So that's why almost every time you see an article talking about, let's say, a data breach that has affected some gaming companies, the articles always start the same way. They first justify why gaming is important. Take a look at some articles next time. They always start by, gaming industry has grown to be this big, and by this research, actually the gamers are now spending this much money into it, and gamers are actually on average this age in North America, and blah blah blah. So they first have to lay out why this is even a thing, like why gaming industry matters. And whereas for us, we have perhaps for a long time already understood the impact and the size of the industry. It's ridiculously big. I think for me that hits can't remember the year right out of the bat, but when the first international tournament for Dota 2 came about, and the prize for the winners, the prize for them, or the award, was $1 million. And that was the first time in any esports tournament $1 million have been in the reward money. And then I realized that, okay, this esports is actually getting pretty big, and that's of course many times bigger these days. But and that already happened maybe 10 years ago or something. And
something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And still to this day, it's these articles and everywhere it always starts by explaining that gaming industry is actually probably the biggest entertainment industry in the world right now, and this is why it matters that some gaming company got breached and so forth. And then when looking through the lenses of security vendors such as us, I guess there are still, of course, there are still people who are in these cybersecurity companies. And like I started with saying, people might have still wrong or outdated views of gamers. But there's also the fact that, as mentioned before, that gaming really, like the audience and their needs wasn't really an easy audience for, let's say, internet security and antivirus manufacturers because of the resource issues and bandwidth issues and things like that.
Yeah.
And although products and computers and everything, they have evolved, that maybe that old world and old thinking is still haunting there a bit in the background. It is in the process of changing, but definitely I don't think that these things are seeing each other and being on the same level. And in general, gaming, gamers, cybersecurity vendors, and then how media portrays both and the cross section of these two. They are all in a kind of a mismatch, I would say.
Yeah. Well, I hopefully with this little podcast of ours, we can try to make the gap a bit smaller.
Yes, bridge the divide, definitely.
Yeah. All right. I think we have now discussed quite broadly about information security, about our own ways of trying to keep our security hygiene in better check. Also, some examples from Teemu about skin trading and the scams that might occur there. Is there something special that gamers and esports athletes should still consider when it comes to security hygiene that we haven't talked about yet? Are there some examples or some measures you need to take, Joel, or something?
Well, I could say maybe that no matter what you do as an individual, you have to be aware of that there's always the possibility that the companies themselves got breached, and the breaches can be can have different impacts. They can be straight up credential breaches. Just I think in the last year, a research came out that had looked at top 25 game development companies and looked what kind of credentials and information was available in dark web out of those, and in total I think the research gathered something along 1 million credentials, and hundreds of thousands of those were credentials of the developers themselves or other employees of the companies. And so of course that poses risks not just directly towards your account, depending on how well encrypted and such they've kept your details, but also then if they have access to the actual game servers, for example, that can pose as a risk. And then what we've seen very recently, actually, with CD Projekt, who makes Witcher and Cyberpunk, they got hit by a ransomware, and the ransomware gang actually did steal information from them on source codes and things like that. And source codes have been stolen before, and that doesn't by itself or alone necessarily mean anything. But again, that's one way for the attackers to get an insight to how a game works, how it communicates with the servers, for example, and things like that. And that opens up the possibilities then for them to make malware and do other types of things, phishing attacks or man-in-the-middle attacks and different things like that to gain advantage over the players and over the accounts, and eventually turn their efforts into monetary value. So yeah, so even though you would keep very good care of your own accounts, and if you're a high-profile player, then even more so encouraged to take those extra steps and to simply just not share if possible, but just to be aware that some things are out of your hands, and you need to figure out what to do in those situations. And if you see those news that a company that makes the games that you play has been hacked, then at least try to be proactive on your part. Change your passwords and take a closer look at your account history and what's happening with your account, and if there's weird logins and things like that. And if possible, if you have any money or something in your account, maybe withdraw that momentarily to see if there is anything else going on besides that. And then when the when it seems safe enough and seems that the situation is under control, then proceed with the normal transactions and normal things. But it's good to be aware of and read about this cybersecurity news, so you know what's going on with those companies.
All right, that was a fair bit of knowledge yet again. Teemu, do you have
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, that was a good speech you gave.
Yeah, agreed. I don't really have anything to add there.
Okay. So I think since we've talked quite a bit already, we getting to know each other, if you could say that. I think there in the end there would be time for some stories if you have any. Like, for example, have you yourselves been scammed successfully, or have your accounts been stolen or something like that? And I know, Joel, you said that sharing is not caring. So I'm not entirely sure if we should share these stories, but what do you think?
I think it's good. I think it ties back to what I said before, that if we have these experiences, it's very important to share the knowledge and share the message to other people and other gamers, so that they can be more aware of what's going on and maybe avoid the similar situations themselves.
Yeah. All right, let's get on with it then. I can start because my list is very, very short. I hope yours is
right.
as well. But I have one account that was that was stolen. It was like maybe it was a game I played about 10 years ago, and I played it for like a year or two, and then stopped playing it. And around maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I started to get these weird emails or something, and then I checked like what's up with my account, and then it seemed that everything in it was stolen. Like the skins were transferred. There wasn't a lot of money, but I felt bad because of I didn't take care of the security measures as well as I should have. So that was my punishment for it. But at least I learned from that experience. So yeah, those are my sins. What about you guys?
I'm thinking, and I'm pretty sure I have never been scammed. Like, I'm getting attempted getting scammed like every day. Every single day I get these scam tryings. But I have never been scammed in any way. So I don't have any spicy stories.
Nice.
Which is good, actually.
Yeah, it is. What about Joel?
Have either one of you checked through some service how many times your email address has been in some data breaches?
No.
Okay, a bit of homework then for
yeah.
After this. Well, bit of a same thing. I'm fairly sure that some super old accounts have probably been taken over. I have some faint memories of that, but in terms of gaming accounts, I doubt it. And looking at right now, let's see. So my current email addresses have been, I'm monitoring right now 5 different emails, probably again oversharing, by the way. Current email addresses have been in 7 different breaches at this point. And my old Gmail account, which I can share that I did have a Gmail account. I don't have it anymore, so joke's on you. But that was in dozens of breaches. I think I recall seeing double-digit numbers. But I got rid of that account, and that was back in the day tied to many things. And but then I started separating those accounts and creating different email addresses and such. And perhaps there's another tip that if you have maybe one account, for example, a Steam account that is full of valuable stuff and is tied to your credit cards and things like that, might not be a bad idea to create a new email address just for that account, and then use that email to nothing else except for that account and managing that account. And again, same principles apply with that new email address, strong passwords, 2-factor authentications and things like that. So that way you have a bit more control, again, like one step more you control and sort of narrow that attack possibilities if everything is not tied to just one email address. But maybe talking about still these passwords, one more thing, and these security hygiene practices in general, it's good to keep in mind that if you're now listening this and thinking that you're not doing anything of these things yet, then don't get overwhelmed, but start doing slowly and bits, incremental improvements. They're a good way of getting things towards a better direction. And for example, personally, when I took password manager in use, I just every weekend took like a few minutes, maybe half an hour, started going through old accounts, deleting old accounts and changing passwords and so forth. And then over the course of several weeks, then I'm finally in the place where I am now, and I'm feeling pretty good about my passwords and accounts in general. So definitely baby steps, but they go a long way.
Mm-hmm. Well, there you have it, folks. Baby steps, but it takes. How do you say it? I can't remember it anymore.
Let's say that even baby steps in cybersecurity can take you a long way.
Damn right. Damn right. Okay. You know what, guys? I think we are coming to the end of this little podcast. I've really enjoyed discussing with both of you. Thank you for participating.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Do you have any final words, like for the audience, for the listeners, or anything?
Well, maybe my part, I can say that, you know, start with common sense, and remember those practices that you, Timo, listed there in the earlier stages of this episode. So a few basic steps. If you do those, you are already better off than most of your, or if not all of your friends, let's say that. And you know, gaming is serious business in the end, and when there is money involved, there are criminals involved, and it's just good to keep that in mind.
Yeah, my advice would be like, if you're unsure, don't do it. Like in the examples I told earlier, like the people are always like thinking, should I do this? And then they ask me for help, and they already like they know this is not real, but they still do it, and they still get scammed. Yes. And then they are shocked about it. So this triggers me, like I don't know what they are thinking at that moment. Yeah. But if you're unsure, don't do it.
Yeah, this reminds me of the comic that there's this guy riding a bicycle, then he puts stick into the front tire, and then he falls off. Yeah. But yeah, exactly. That's the way it goes. Final words for me, I pretty much, you emptied the casino, if you would say that. Really, really good information on information security, about cybersecurity, security hygiene. I mean, I learned a lot during this little talk of ours, and I hope you, the listener, did as well. So yeah, this was Joel, Teemu, and Timo, and everything is well. See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks. See you.